Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
Двумя фонарями светить в одну точку.
Вот.
Эй! Эй, ты кто? Ты кто?
According to the details on that video, someone thinks that they spotted an actual alien in their yard, and that's what was making that sound. Honestly, though, I feel like I've heard that sound multiple times before, and it could be a human voice. I've made that sound before playing around with my kids, pretending to be a dinosaur. But if this is faked, I have to give them credit. This is one of the few videos that I've seen where the people in the video actually react the way you would expect someone to react in the situation that they're in.
I just ran across a very interesting video talking about a biblical conspiracy that basically states that all the gods from other religions do exist, but instead of them actually being gods, they're just the fallen angels that got kicked out of heaven. Based on this perspective, when Satan and a third of his angels got kicked out of heaven, they immediately began roaming the earth, tricking people into believing they were gods, thus creating new religions in the process. And history is repeating itself. The same thing is happening today, only instead of them coming in the form of ancient Egyptian gods, they're coming in the form of UFOs and aliens, specifically trying to sell the idea that they're from a distant planet or galaxy and not at all connected to demons or any of our religions. I've always found it very interesting that the way aliens are believed to look, being humanoid-like beings or humans that shapeshift into animals like reptiles, has similarities to the biblically accurate angel known as a cherubim, which has the likeness of a man but the faces of different animals. There's actually an interesting theory that talks about how humanoid beings implement themselves within a society right before that society disappears or collapses, and there's actually a bit of evidence behind it.
I think this theory makes logical sense with the advent of all these different religions and all these different gods that were worshipped throughout the ages. The only thing that's going to keep us from knowing for sure is that during this time that all this stuff was supposedly taking place, all these different religions and gods and stuff were being invented or worshipped. They weren't really that great at keeping detailed records. So it's likely we'll never get an answer on if this is true or not, unless of course it is true and the aliens or the angels posing as aliens decide to come down here and reveal themselves at some point. Hey, don't forget to click like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at barry-stepp.com.
I've been waiting for months to find this particular video without writing across the screen obscuring the important part of the footage. So thankfully I found a good copy. So this is a crematorium in Ecuador, and this gentleman was being filmed in the process of cremating a body. An unexplainable phenomenon has been happening in the crematorium. Phenomenon such as machinery being sabotaged, objects moving, his clothes being pulled and figures being seen. This was captured on camera. Observe.
I know I'm going to get a lot of hateful comments for my take on this. Not that I care, really. We're all allowed to have our own opinion. Some people who watch my videos apparently don't think that I'm allowed to have one. I'm 100% convinced that this is a smudge on a pane of glass and someone is filming through a window. When they move the camera from one side to the next, the smudge comes into frame and exits the frame. There's not a single part of me that's convinced that this is anything other than someone posting footage to the internet that they know is fake.
A lot of people are starting to notice that we've had really strange weather phenomena in the last couple weeks. It all started when people began recording and reporting red lightning all over the sky. According to scientists, this red lightning, also known as red sprites, has always been around, but people are still finding it strange, seeing as how it came out of almost nowhere. On New Year's Eve, lightning struck the US Capitol, the Washington Monument, and the Empire State Building. And although lightning does typically strike high points, some people believe that all three of these buildings being struck on the same day is more than a coincidence. To top it all off, people all over the UK, Canada, and the US are reporting a very dense and mysterious fog. What's really strange is that the people recording it claim that the fog is giving off a very metallic smell, as well as giving them headaches, a cough, and sickness in general after encountering it. This has led to multiple theories. While some believe that the fog was purposely implemented to cover up something in the sky, others believe that nanoparticles or smart dust has been sprayed.
I still like the smart dust theory. I say that I like it, not that I believe that's what's going on. I just know how much they would love to implement this at some point. The smart dust stuff would be a dream come true for those who seek to have total control over the entire population. And I like this theory because I see that at some point this is likely coming down the road.
If you've ever seen this experiment before where they put this magnet on this circular Hot Wheels type thing, then you know that an aurora borealis actually appears directly in the center of this thing, which gets many people to suspect that the aurora borealis at the North Pole is actually some type of portal. And now, just recently, a larger structure that is supposedly just a work of art that looks a lot like that science experiment we just saw has been built in Detroit, of all places, which has got many people thinking that whoever built this, maybe they are actually trying to create a portal and escape to somewhere. Now, in my opinion, I don't think that we actually have the technology to create a portal, but I think that whoever builds these, they do it for the imagery factor to show people what they actually believe in. Because I do think that there's a secret underground religion that's super weird, and they have to put their truth in plain sight. Because they got the Fibonacci sequence that has to do with the Mandelbrot set here, and they also had sculptures of demons around this site too, and it's right next to a Scientology building. But all this talk about the North Pole actually being a portal has got me thinking about this time that this one guy was texting me and telling me that he went beyond the ice wall or to a new land, and he got there by flying to the North Pole, which has a secret hole there, which he won't tell me the exact location of. But what if the Northern Lights are actually like some sort of transportation device? And maybe this guy did make it to some whole faraway secret land. Maybe it was Agartha, or maybe there actually are continents beyond the ice wall. But I don't even know. This is just, there's so much crazy stuff in this world, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. And I thought that science experiment that guy did with the magnet, because I know magnetism has a lot to do with all this. Mandelbrot, if you don't know what that is, look that up. And the Fibonacci sequence, I know it has a lot to do with that. And I do think that there is secret technology hidden that we don't have access to. And I just know there are a lot of secrets out there, and I think it's definitely possible that the Northern Lights are actually some portal.
I thought this was an interesting theory that I'd never heard before. I think I'll need a little bit more evidence before taking it too serious, but it is interesting. I don't think there's any evidence of the aurora borealis being a portal, or, for that matter, the little science experiment that he showed at the beginning of the video. There's no proof of that being a portal. All that science experiment did for me was confirm that the aurora borealis likely has something to do with the Earth's magnetic field.
The fog situation keeps on getting stranger and stranger. This video was taken of a complete blanket of fog coming over this town. And some people are saying that some of the videos are just snow and it's not actual fog. Well, you can take a look at this video here where the woman turns on her light in the same area she was already in, and it's not snow, it's caused by the fog. Strange particles just floating around, acting and behaving not like normal fog. But I think the strangest thing that we have seen so far is this next video. This occurred yesterday in Texas. This is a woman's pool. She woke up to it this morning. She's had a pool for years. I've had a pool, and many people that have pools have never seen anything like this. She hadn't added new chemicals, changed anything about the water. The only difference is that there's been fog pouring in every morning and orbs and drones in her area. This is a close-up shot, and as I've mentioned in the past, though there's no facts to back this, people are calling it a chemical fog. But what do you guys think about this?
I think with this many people experiencing this, someone needs to collect a sample, either out of their pool or just open a jar outside and put a lid back on it and capture the air so that you can send it in to get it tested and see what it consists of. All this speculation, I feel like, is just getting out of hand. People are completely convinced that they're being poisoned by this fog. I just feel like this is one that needs to be solved pretty quick because we got a lot of people freaking out over it. Everybody seems to be assuming the worst, and it may legitimately just be a natural occurring weather phenomenon. I can't do it myself because I'm not experiencing this stuff in my area, and I'm not saying that that's what I believe, that it's all natural. This one would just be easy to solve. That's all I'm saying.
But now we're going to go back in time, and I'm going to ask you who you think did each of these huge events, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The killing of MLK Jr.
That was a CIA operation because they considered him a dangerous communist, and both the FBI was bugging in churches where he was giving some of his speeches in churches. They were bugging the podiums and following him around. He was a top target for elimination.
JFK.
I think that was a CIA hit, and they may have employed some mafia connections to carry it out because that was their mafia assassination program.
Exactly. LBJ was very involved in all that in Dallas. And so
he was an evil man.
He was an evil man. Okay, what about Pearl Harbor?
They knew the attack was coming. They knew where it was going to happen in Pearl Harbor and when. And they told no one, and they let it happen on purpose. That's from the commander of the Pacific Fleet. I would say that's a pretty credible witness. So, yeah. That was a false flag.
They've admitted that. They admitted they heard it was going to happen. And, you know, how else were you going to get Americans to be on the side of this war that had nothing to do with us? Which brings us to 9/11. Your opinion?
My opinion, as a criminal investigator, as a former CIA officer, 9/11 was not the act of a bunch of poorly flight-trained terrorists that executed an unbelievably meticulous piloting of those aircraft. Even pilots, there's pilots for 9/11 Truth now, and they say we could not have done that. Experienced pilots could not have made those maneuvers. Not possible. And then we go to the passport issue, and we go to the Tower 7, which was a controlled demolition.
Obviously.
You talk to any structural engineer, and I have. Well, that was a controlled demolition. I mean, it was perfect. And the fact, I think George W. Bush blacked out, I think it was 40 pages of the 9/11 report dealing with Saudi Arabia. And the report came out, the 9/11 Commission report came out, but those pages were blacked out, and he refused to unredact them. So wait a minute, this report was supposed to be for the American people on what happened, and you blacked all these pages out? What in the world? I do not think that it was a bunch of poorly trained or untrained terrorists that did it. I think there was another source behind it. I think it was intentional. And I'm going just from a criminal investigative perspective, just looking at the evidence, what evidence we have, that was an intentional act. And it would fall right into the MO that you and I are talking about. Horrible event, because human life does not matter to the shadow government deep state, or especially the CIA. It does not matter. They're pawns on their chessboard. They don't care that 3,000 people were horribly killed that day, but it achieved the aim of gutting the U.S. Constitution, bringing in the horrific Patriot Act, giving the CIA unthinkable authority for secret prisons and torture beyond waterboarding and secret renditions and all of that. The FBI, the ability to spy on Americans came out of the Patriot Act. So it was the perfect national security state energizer that the Patriot Act was, and 70 of the congressmen and senators that read the Patriot Act didn't even read it. They just signed off on it without even reading the bill. So, yeah, I mean, that's my view.
I get really nervous posting some of this stuff. I know YouTube doesn't like some of these topics that we cover, and I'm not going to give my opinion on what happened on 9/11 because I'm not trying to lose my channel, and I know that my opinion is not welcome here. I'll just say that with all the evidence that this guy brought up, as well as much more evidence that I've seen throughout the years since 9/11, you shouldn't feel like a nut job just for questioning the official narrative. It is a known fact that the government is only going to tell you what they want you to know and not what we want to know.
I don't understand how people aren't more pissed off about this. Let's play a game. Let's see what this has to do with this. And trust me, things are going to get progressively worse and worse. So Nestle has been in the news lately because of a lawsuit regarding Poland spring water. So the issue is they said the water came from a spring, but it doesn't, which is fraud. Poland spring water is no longer owned by Nestle. That doesn't absolve them from the fraud that they committed, though. But here's how it gets worse. Let's keep talking about Nestle. Did you know that the United States is one of 8 countries that does not have a federally mandated paid leave for new mothers? All these other countries, it is legally required, but in the US, it's not. Why? Well, Nestle is one of the biggest players when it comes to baby formula. They make a lot of money from formula. which is why they spend insane amounts of money lobbying against a federally mandated paid maternity leave. Why is this? Well, Nestle knows if you're not home with your baby, you're probably going to need formula to feed it. They are actively paying to separate parents from children so that they can sell more product. How does it get worse? Thank you so much for asking. Did you know that Nestle used to dress up salespeople as doctors, and they would send them to third world countries under the guise that this is a doctor promoting their formula to these parents? Yeah, that's pretty unethical, right? Cosplaying as a doctor so that people trust you. The issue is these people in third world countries did not have access to clean water. Yeah, so the conservative estimates is that kills about 212,000 infants per year, with 10.9 million since 1960. They don't care about your Gerber baby. They do not care about mothers. 212,000 deaths per year for money. Everybody's up in arms over this, saying violence is never the answer. How can we live in a country where a CEO can get shot for doing his job? I agree, violence is never the answer. He murdered that CEO. These corporations are murdering children. They're not putting a gun to their heads, but it's still killing them. They can rationalize, they can lie, they can disassociate from that fact, but murder is murder. So you have people like Ben Shapiro using their public platform talking about how this is disgusting, people celebrating this. Again, I agree, we should never celebrate murder in any way. Where is the outrage when it comes to much bigger issues? 11 million freaking infant deaths since 1960. But I do appreciate Ben bringing up the fact that murder and violence is never the answer. Which, on a completely unrelated note, do you know the official death toll for Gaza is 45,000? For something to be considered an official death, it has to have a death certificate, someone has to be able to identify the body. There's a bunch of different parameters. Just look at death as a loss of life. Do you know the number's closer to 300,000? But it's complicated. I guess sometimes violence is the answer because of the hostages, right? Regarding the hostages, though, just remind me, are we talking about these ones or these ones? Violence is never the answer, but we live in a world where it sometimes is and it sometimes is okay. This violence, no. This violence, they gotta sell water. They gotta sell chocolate. They gotta sell baby formula, okay? And I bring up chocolate. Oh, did you know that the cacao industry is one of the largest when it comes to slavery and using slave labor? It has literally been proven. It has been proven that Nestle uses slave labor, but it could cost customers more if they didn't. But you know what they say, people need their Kit Kats, people need their chocolate. Again, I want to repeat, murderer? Just a corporation doing their job. We are led by hypocrites and liars. And you keep drinking the Kool-Aid that you can't impact anything. The numbers are on our side. The system fails without you. And you have been conditioned to believe that you cannot change the system, and that's why nothing changes, because you believe that. Please, wake up.
If you think as a simple consumer that you can't enact big change with these corporations, might I direct your attention to the Budweiser company. We can absolutely hold these companies' feet to the fire if we just refuse to purchase their products anymore. Now, I can't sit here and say I'll never eat another candy bar. I shouldn't, but I certainly won't be giving my money to Nestle in the future. This is disgusting. There should be public outrage over this.
Unfortunately, yes, and this is a tough one for me personally to admit. I used to be the biggest horror fan. I have a massive horror tattoo on my leg, and I had like an insane collection of horror memorabilia. There wasn't one horror movie that you could tell me about that I hadn't already seen, but I completely stopped watching horror. And I did so for a couple reasons. So I talk a lot about sound and music on here, and one of the things that made me come to the conclusion about music being not the best for us was that I was reading this study about horror movies where they said that if you get too scared when you're watching a movie, you should cover your ears and not your eyes, because it's actually the infrasound that scares you. And infrasound is an inaudible sound that they record from like earthquakes and volcanoes and like atomic bombs and stuff, and they add it in the background of horror movies and a lot of like rap songs to create like atmospheric effects. And then I started learning that a lot of horror movies, when they're like casting spells or like speaking in tongues, but like the bad version, I don't know if there's a different name for that, they're using like legit spells. I had no idea. Like if you actually translate them, they are using legitimate spells. So when you go to see it or you put it like on your TV in your home, now like that spell is like there. And then I started to think about how demonic entities feed off of fear and negative emotion. And then when you look at it from the standpoint of sacred geometry and stuff like that, what we perceive and give our energy to is like what materializes. So we're like all going to see these big scary movies and giving energy to these evil forces. I don't say that to say that like Pennywise is going to come out of the screen. I'm just saying like we're probably feeding into evil forces. Our eyes are the windows to our souls. So watching scary movies, you know what I mean? Like you're looking at like disturbing images. This one's gonna rustle some feathers, but this also really applies to true crime. I used to listen to true crime podcasts every day. And when I was listening to the most true crime and watching horror movies like almost every day, I was so anxious, I probably needed medication. Like I could hardly function. So yeah, this was one of the hardest pills for me personally to swallow because I loved horror, but I refuse to watch it anymore. Like I can't tell you the last time I watched a horror movie. I'm not judging anybody that still chooses to, but proceed with caution if you do.
I just thought this was a great PSA. I've actually experienced this myself. I used to listen to Last Podcast on the Left, True Crime Garage, and a slew of other true crime podcasts. And it literally made me start having anxiety attacks at one point. When you just fill your head with nothing but anxiety-inducing stories, at some point, that's all your mind is going to consist of is anxiety. It can completely consume you. I cannot agree with her more.
This is why you don't ever buy a bird off of Craigslist. And this video comes from TikTok user Ksu. I'll tag it below. And after purchasing a bird off of Craigslist, which is a free website where you can post local ads, she begins to record when the bird starts mimicking voices late at night when she's home alone. Now it should be noted that many of the commenters were left terrified, while others remained skeptical. But here's that clip. Take a look.
My eye hurts. Hello, gorgeous. Hey, girl. There you go. Oh, gorgeous. You can go to sleep. I'm not gonna hurt you. Pretty girl. Oh, gorgeous. It's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you. You can go to sleep.
While that would absolutely be disturbing, I think that bird was just repeating what its previous owner would say to it every night to get it to go to sleep. It sounds like the previous owner was probably really loving and caring for that bird. I would 100% be releasing that thing out the back door though. I'm not sleeping in a house with a talking animal that's trying to coax me to sleep. No thank you. Now, before I go, I wanted to address a couple of things very quickly. First off, I apologize for the late upload. I said that the video would be up yesterday, but it wasn't. I had to spend all day yesterday prepping for this bad weather that rolled in last night. I had to make that a priority. It's completely my fault. I should have never said that the video would be up yesterday, and I apologize. Secondly, I get constant comments on almost every single video of people asking me to make these videos longer. I know that y'all want longer content, and I would love to be able to give that to you. However, as it stands, I currently spend about 6 hours a day to make these videos. I'm sure that there are faster ways to do it than the way that I've structured it for myself, but this is my current setup. I just simply don't have the time in the day to make them longer. I may in the future release some longer form videos, and I'm working on a long form Tartaria video at the moment, but I just wanted to tell everybody my daily uploads will not suddenly jump up to 40 minutes in length. I'm just not willing to risk the potential burnout from putting in 10-hour work days, and I hope you all understand. But guys and gals, I'm going to go ahead and end the video right there. I hope you enjoyed these clips we watched together today. I'll be back on Monday with another video. I hope you come back to join me. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and check out my merch store at berry-stepp.com. And don't forget to drop a photo of your merch over in the Discord to get your photo in a video. But with all that out of the way, I hope everyone's having a great, safe, fantastic day, and I will see you all tomorrow.